All right, today we're talking about the clay center. So I already have some materials out. All the materials are stored behind, and then you need to share them with people around you. So I grabbed out some clay. If you're having trouble getting clay out of the bag, let me know. First thing that you need to know is that you need to grab a board, and we use the canvas side of the board so it doesn't stick. So if you just have clay on the table, it ends up sticking. When you try to move it, it doesn't work. So the canvas should be dry. There are some little bit of wet spots, but that's okay. And you're going to start wedging. So wedging is when we push it down on all the different sides. So pick it up, turn it, pick it up, turn it. And this is so that we get all the air out. Okay? You don't want to over wedge, otherwise your clay can become too brittle and it gets dried out. But you do need to wedge so that you don't have big air pockets. So when you cut into a piece of clay, if it has air pockets, it'll explode in the kiln. So I'm going to wedge for a short time. Okay? And then you have to think of your idea. So my idea is to make a snowman today. So I'm going to need several balls of clay. So I'm going to squeeze off a little bit. Okay, and kind of like Play-Doh. I'm going to make this into my creature. We always think about pieces of clay that we're going to make that are about as big as my hand, okay? We don't want to have giant things coming out of the kiln. And then anytime that you have clay, it has to be thinner than my thumb. And what that means is that you can't have an entire ball of clay because most likely there's air in here. So I have to use my thumb and I have to push in to my clay so that it is hollow on the inside. And then all of these sides are now thinner than my thumb, and it's presumably so is the top, like if you can think 3D sphere shapes, okay? So this is gonna be one of the snowman's body parts, okay? I need to make 3 more of those. You can wedge small pieces to get them smoother, roll them. Again, pushing my thumb in, because each of his body parts needs to be in that shape. Okay, so I'm just smoothing it around so that it's hollow on the inside. Any of these imperfections up here, these cracks, I'm going to be smoothing while I work. If you wait till the end to smooth your cracks, most likely you're going to end up collapsing your project. So I have 1, 2, I think I need to make a tinier one for his head. Want to put pieces of clay together. I think this one needs to be smaller a little bit. Okay. I cannot simply just push and have them stay, because when the clay molecules heat up in the kiln, they vibrate against each other and then pieces will pop off. Okay, so to help that, we have to do something called score. So we are going to scratch, 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 scratch. And I'm going to scratch this part as well. Scratch, 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 to make it look really messy, like scratch and score super deep, poke holes, poke, 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 and this is gonna go on top, okay? So that it is hollow all the way through, I'm going to make a hole, okay? A hole in here, so that when it goes together, my pieces of snowmen will be hollow all the way up. So I'm gonna dip, or you could use your finger to help it get wet. This is gonna be a little bit of glue to help it stay together. So I'm going to get scratching, and then hopefully the water will go down into my scratches to help make it slippery for my clay to slip together. So scratch, score, slip, and squeeze my pieces together. So squeezing them so that when the clay goes in the kiln, in the oven, they don't just slip and slide right off of each other. They're actually going to be joined. I'm going to take my finger and kind of go around him in making that more of like a ball shape for his next body part. And I'm going to use a little bit of my water to come back and make the clay smooth. You really don't want to see any cracks in your clay. So I have 1 more piece to put on top, so 1 more time. Make a hole, scratch, 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 scratch. You don't want to like scratch too large because that's going to make it, you can see that from the bottom, right? So scratch, 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 scratch. Deep, 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 deep. And then go on top. And twist, twist, and push him on to the top. Okay. There he goes. All right, is he looking like a snowman? Now I can think about any details that I want to add on. So snowmen have buttons, snowmen have arms. okay? So anything, snowman have buttons, snowman have arms, okay? So anything that I want to add on to him that I'm making, I'm going to make them a couple at a time. I'm not going to sit here and try to make all of my pieces first. Okay, maybe a little nose, maybe some little eyes, okay? And then anything that I want to put on, you cannot just simply squeeze on. Again, you need to scratch where it's going to go. This is the bottom piece of Velcro that's going to stick, and then I have to scratch this part too. Here's the other piece of Velcro. Get it wet a little bit and push it on. Okay. You can also draw details on. Okay, so if I really want to have his eyes looking really cool, I could come back in here and put a little eyeball in there, a hole. Okay, little snowman. My hands are getting super messy. I'm not going to stop to wash them because that would take too much time. We don't have a lot of time in art. So I'm going to wait until the very end after I clean up and I'm ready to wash my table to wash my hands because everything's just going to continue getting messier. Okay. If I want to make arms, here's the tricky part. Anything that's too skinny, like my nose or my arms, might fall off in the kiln. So if I have big arms like this, it's going to possibly break. Like think about your pencil or a twig snapping and breaking. Okay, so you want to make sure that they have, it's like a carrot. So there's like a larger part at the bottom that's going to attach to my arm, and then a skinnier part at the end that isn't potentially going to break. Okay, so it's always looking like this sort of carrot shape. I'm going to scratch, and I'm going to do this fairly deep so that there is a hole for my arm to actually sit into. And I'm going to scratch here and poke holes, dip it in my water, and really try to squeeze my arm onto and into that hole. Okay, the largest part is towards my snowman's body. The skinniest part is out here. Okay, and that's going to potentially stay on unless he like falls on the arm, and then he might actually snap off. Okay, this one is too skinny. Okay, he's a lot tinier than my other arm, so I would actually have to come back here, roll out, pick my thickest part down here, break off or cut, and then I can measure, because he kind of wants to be symmetrical, and break off and cut, and then don't forget to scratch him and do all sorts of things to get him to stay on. Okay, it's really important. It's like Legos. I'm going to squeeze this part onto his body, okay, until you kind of hear it squish, and making sure that it's going to stay on. If I have a weak part right here where he is skinnier, this part is potentially going to break. Okay, so you really want to make sure that you have it coming back in like a carrot, where it goes from thick to thin without it having really weak spots or cracks, okay, where he could potentially fall off and break. Okay. When you're done with your clay, it needs to say your class and your name, and then he goes up here on the tray to wait to dry. It's going to take him a couple days to wait and dry. All of these materials, I have to squeeze off any clay, and then they have to go when it's time for cleanup. You've already put your clay away. If it's not, your clay goes in the damp box. So this is damp box number 5 for classes who are C. It could go in here if I don't want my clay to dry yet, because I need to keep adding on a top hat or buttons, or it's just not ready. It's going to go in here. Try to lay him down, because if he falls when you're moving this, he could fall over and then not be able to, his arms and things would break off. So lay him down. Then I'm coming back here, and I'm not done yet. I'm not washing my hands yet because all of these things are still really dirty. I'm going to stomp all of this clay up. It's going to go in with the rest of the clay. Twist it up like it's a loaf of bread and tip it upside down, or use the twist tie. This goes down here. My clay board is now empty. It does not get washed with any water. It needs to dry. All of my tools, need to go in the correct spots. Needle tools, My water is going to get dumped out in the sink. This water does not need to get rinsed out. This can just be left for other classes. When I'm ready, I'm going to take a wet sponge. This side can be used for any stubborn clay. You're going to wash down the whole table. I'm just going to do this section just for time. And then I'm going to come back to keep the dust down in here. I'm going to dry the whole table with a large bath towel. This bath towel stays dry and is only used for drying purposes. Okay? Happy clay making.